Hey guys, Tom here from synthhacker.com, and in this tutorial for NI Massive we're going to be looking at making this kind of Dusky style deep house bass sound. Really nice warm fat bass sound. Really like this, and it's actually really simple to make as well. And it is kind of like the Dusky bass sound that is used in a couple of his tracks. A few people have requested that like a tutorial for that kind of sound, because I have done tutorials on like the more like future house sounds, like the kind of more like bigger that kind of like bigger bass sounds, but some you guys were requesting, you know, something a bit more reminiscent of like classic deep house and stuff, and this is just really cool sound. So we're going to make this sound completely from scratch. Just before we do, as always, I mentioned that bass sound is included in my massive preset pack, which contains over 500 presets spanning multiple genres. It's actually bass 15 from my from the section in the Deep and Future House section of my preset pack. You can either get that separately, or you can get the full pack, which contains all the presets from all the other packs as well. Just click the link in the description to go check that out if you feel like it, or head over to synthhacker.com. And thanks in advance if you do decide to purchase that. I really do appreciate it. It really helps support me and the channel, and you get yourself some really nice presets as well. But without further ado, let's begin making this sound completely from scratch. So first things first, just make sure that the sound is monophonic, as you'll always want to do for bass sounds. Also, make sure to turn down the glide down a little bit. One thing you'll notice is that when you make presets monophonic, sometimes by default, with the way the glide's set up, you'll notice that notes slide from note to note, so sounds slide from note to note, which is nice in some sounds, but not so much for sounds like this. So we're going to go into the oscillator section now, and we're going to use two oscillators. We're going to use oscillator 1 and 2, and we're actually just going to use two different square waves. We're going to use one to provide the low end of the sound, like the beefy low end, and then just to add some extra harmonics in the higher frequencies, we're going to add a second oscillator with 12 semitones, like a whole octave above oscillator 1. And just make sure that both of these are being routed through filter 1, and again just make sure that the wavetable position is all the way to the left, so we're just getting the square waveforms. The other thing that I did in this bass sound is just turn the amplitude level of the high end down. We do, like I said, want it to add some upper harmonics to the sound, just to fill out the frequency range a little bit, because generally these bass sounds are going to be playing either on their own or with like only a few other elements, not including the drums obviously. So adding beefing it out a little bit in the upper frequencies is just a really great way to fill out your mix a little bit, but we don't want it to completely dominate the sound, so just turn the amplitude down a little bit. The next thing we're going to do is go down to the noise oscillator. We're not actually making use of oscillator 3 or the modulation oscillator in this sound, and the noise form that I decided to use for this sound was this aluminium one. Not for any particular reason, it's hard to explain, but it just kind of suited the sound well. It's kind of got this like dusty, like metallic, like rough sound to it, really cool. And we're going to set up a separate amplitude envelope for this noise source. The reason being is that we want the noise to be at the start of the sound, so like at the attack of the sound, just to kind of make it cut through the mix a little bit more, but we don't want it to completely dominate the sound. So we're going to set up envelope 2 here, bring the sustain right down, and bring the decay down as well. And then we're going to drag and drop it onto the amplitude, and just give it a little bit of modulation there. So yeah, this is just going to add a nice little bit of attack to the sound, and just kind of polish up the sound a little bit, and just make sure that this is being routed through filter 2, because this is we want this to kind of go through, kind of bypass the filter section completely, so that even when the cutoff on our filter is really low, for like the rest of the sound, this is still kind of cutting through the sound, and it's always kind of there. So far we just have this, which at the minute is kind of nowhere near the sound that we want, but The reason being is that most of the sound actually comes from what we're doing in the filter section. So we're going to use a acid filter, which is just kind of like a low pass filter, but with the characteristics of like an acid filter. I'm not actually sure exactly what filter it's kind of trying to emulate, but it does, like I say, have this like acid sound to it. So we're going to keep the resonance like quite high as well, just to give it like those characteristics. And then we're going to set up envelope 3 here. We're going to bring the sustain right down, give it a little bit of release. And we'll play around with the decay settings a little bit. I can't remember what exactly I had it set on, but we'll find a good setting for it. And then bring the cutoff all the way down, and then bring the modulation just over halfway. And this really gives it a lot of its character, and kind of gives it that like really classic like deep bass sound. So not far off there at all. What we're going to do now is go into the amplitude envelope of the sound, which is by default in Massive envelope 4, as you can see up here. And we're going to give this similar characteristics to the envelope 3 that we're using. We're just going to increase the decay a little bit and also give the sound a little bit more release. So now we've got this. We're also going to give the envelope a little bit more release. Bring it down a little bit. So we're close. One thing that I did forget to do, as I mentioned earlier, is to route the noise through. So because this is being routed through filter 2, which doesn't have a filter, so it should just be completely bypassing it. You do have to remember to turn this level knob up, and also take down this slider here, so we're hearing a mix between filter 1 and filter 2, and not just filter 1. And now you can hear the noise coming through really subtly. Just adds like a dustiness to it. It's hard to explain, but it just kind of adds like a really nice texture to it. I really like it. And you can kind of play around with the volume of this to your own taste. You might want it to be quite loud or quite subtle. It's completely up to you. I like it like quite prominent, somewhere around there. The next thing I'm going to do is just add a dimension expander, which is something that I love doing on bass sounds. Just really kind of fattens it up. And you can, just in case you didn't know, Steve Duda from X4 Records, you'll probably know him as the guy who created like drum sequencer like Nerve, and also a really popular synth, X4 Records Serum. He actually made... this effect was so good, and so many people love using it, that he actually made a standalone free version of this that you can use on anything. So that kind of does justice to how good this effect actually is. So you want to bring this dry wet a little bit down. You don't want it to completely dominate the sound, and bring the size down just a little bit. But as I'll just demonstrate here, this completely like fattens up the sound. Really great. Absolutely awesome. And then the last thing we're going to do is head into the EQ section, and we're just going to increase this low shelf parameter just to boost the low end a little bit. Because we've not got a separate oscillator set up, like bypassing the filter, it does lose some of its low end sometimes, especially when it's passed through effects and whatnot. You know, usually you can kind of get around that by just bypassing it in the routing section, but we're just going to get around that just by boosting the low end in the EQ here. And that's our finished sound. So hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. Hopefully you got some use out of it. Like I said, it is quite a simple sound, but really great. There's a lot of different directions you could go with this as well. You could play around with some different like wavetables, maybe try out some interesting modulation settings like the phase or FM modulation. Loads of stuff you can do here. So hopefully you got some use out of this tutorial. If you did, please subscribe to stay up to date with new tutorials. We've got daily synthesis and sound design tutorials coming out for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below, and leave a like if this video helped you and all that good stuff. And yeah, if, like I mentioned at the start of the video, I do have a preset pack for Massive which has loads of awesome sounds like this included in it. Definitely go ahead and check that out. If you have time, go over to synthhacker.com, or you can click the link in the description below. Like I said, I do have a separate Deep and Future House pack, but I also have a sale on at the minute, at the time of recording this video, on my Massive Mega Pack, which contains all the Deep and Future House presets, loads of other presets in there from different genres that you guys will probably get a lot of use out of, and also an hour-and-a-half video course bundled with that as well. So I think you guys will really get a lot of use out of that. Like I said, head over to synthhacker.com or click the link in the description to check that out. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Thanks in advance if you decide to purchase that, and I'll see you in the next video.